people live, right? If you think about one of the things that I think is so compelling about being involved in real estate and pursuing a career in real estate is the ability to influence the way people live, right? If you think about the power that you have as a result of working for a developer that is creating the next apartment complex or creating the next office complex or whatever it might be, you're creating something that's going to be in your marketplace for 80, 100 years. So there's a long, long life associated with what has been created. And if we think about things like in Washington, D.C. with Amazon coming here and the issue of affordable housing and the issue of food deserts and these societal issues that have their grounding in the built environment, think about an opportunity or a future where you help to create solutions to the way people find their food, or you help to create solutions that provides true affordability to people in need of housing. So in my opinion, one of the most compelling reasons why you should get involved in real estate and a career in real estate is the influence you can have on the way people live. And I frankly think that's a better answer than most who say that I like real estate because it's tangible. It's true, but that tangibility is only so much. How do we transform that tangibility into impacting individuals' lives?
Everything we do, how we live our lives, is dependent on the built environment. So you go home and you live in a house that was part of real estate and developed. You go to an office. You go on vacation to a Gulf resort or some sort of a ocean resort. It's all part of the built environment. If we don't have the built environment, we don't really have places to go. So when we start looking at where we live, where we work, and where we play, the built environment is critically important throughout. So that's really what we're going to talk about here when we talk about commercial real estate, is providing places where we live, work, and play. The built environment is where we live, but the built environment is also where we work. And so a quality built environment can make folks far more productive and enjoy their work much more. It can go to a resort hotel that has all the amenities that you want, but yet can afford. It's finding that right mix. So when we talk about the built environment on where we live, work, and play, the work piece is making sure we are productive as individuals and enjoying what we do. The greatest asset of any entity is going to be its people. And if its people aren't happy because of the built environment that they're in, be it the space is too cold or too hot or located in the suburbs, they want to be downtown, it makes a big difference. So the last piece of the built environment is really where we play, live, work, and play. And sometimes you might not think about that as being real estate, but without the investment in the land to create a golf course, well, we simply have a piece of land. Or the resort hotel that's at your favorite beach in Hawaii. Without that resort hotel, you don't go to Hawaii to enjoy the natural beauty of the land and the ocean there. So that last piece is a big part of how we live, work, and play. And without having real estate assets in each one of those, we don't have the ability to enjoy a place to live, be productive, and also play.
Let's talk about the term real estate. If real estate is tangible property that is affixed to a particular place, then real estate can mean many things. In the United States, where we can own land, land itself is real estate. Homes and offices are also real estate. Real estate is familiar to us. It's the environment we live in. The places where we live and work, the places we shop and dine, the places where we listen to music are all real estate. Parks and public squares, also real estate. Even community gardens are real estate. Real estate is so much a part of our daily lives that those of us not in the business of commercial real estate may not think of it as an important part of our social and financial system, a big business with roles for many professionals. But it is big business. It's a very big part of the economy. It's also what shapes our lives and experiences. For these reasons, what gets built, how it gets built, and for whom, including what's left as public space and green space, are all sources of great concerns to our communities. Winston Churchill famously said, "We shape our buildings. Thereafter, they shape us."
So let's talk about real estate and what really is real estate. Well, real estate comes in three little components, and it's really real property from a technical perspective that we're going to talk about here. So real estate starts with land. Land is clearly real estate. Additionally, on that land, we put on improvements, buildings. That's real estate as well. But what comes with real estate, and it goes to then real property, is this bundle of rights that goes with real estate that allows for the quiet enjoyment of real estate by individuals, but also the ability to take that property if there's a greater use for it elsewhere. So when we start talking about real estate is land, building, and bundle of rights, right? But what real estate is not, it is not things such as an automobile, it is not things such as furniture. And when we start looking at that fine line between real estate and personal property being that furniture and that car, if it is something that's permanently affixed to the real estate, it's real estate. If it is something that isn't, wouldn't be. So let's say I'm standing behind a podium, and that podium is permanently affixed. That's real estate. But let's say it's a podium on wheels, that's no longer real estate, that's personal property. So when you buy real estate, you're going to buy real estate, but you're also going to buy part personal property. Let's say you're buying an apartment complex. You get a washer, dryer, dishwasher. All three of those things are personal property because you can simply unplug them or disconnect the water and walk off with them. But now we've got another piece of equipment called, let's say, a garbage disposal. Now that's physically attached and can't be easily removed. That's now real estate.
The difference between personal property and real estate is pretty clear. But how did ownership become such an important concept in our community? Being able to own things is really an expression of our freedom and our autonomy. The idea that we can own and enjoy things is an important part of understanding our rights. You see, the right to own land is based on the notion that having worked on a piece of land and having mixed your labor with that land, it becomes more yours than anyone else's. Our current practices of buying and selling land are an extension of that idea. If something is yours, you can do as you wish with it. You can choose to sell it, or you can make improvements. For example, you might want to construct buildings on land to make it more useful. The legal privilege that allows you to make these decisions about your property is known as a bundle of rights. But what is this bundle of rights? The idea that simply owning land and whatever you put on it is not enough to ensure that you can enjoy it, and you have a right to enjoy it. People have long been concerned about other people making it hard for them to enjoy their own property. If your neighbor builds a wall right outside your window, you'll no longer have a view or access to natural light. If they blare music at all hours, you won't be able to sleep. So your right to do what you want must always be weighed against other people's rights to do what they want. In other words, your enjoyment of your property should not decrease someone else's enjoyment of theirs. And what if your property is blocking access to roads or infrastructure that people need to get to their properties to enjoy them? In this case, the concept of eminent domain enables the government to actually take part or all of your property for the greater good, to allow for infrastructure that will benefit all. As you can see, questions about what is legal as well as what is just and fair are often at the heart of decisions about real estate development because people's rights can come into conflict. Individuals, communities, and jurisdictions have to figure out what they will do when conflicts arise.
So let's now talk about land use in the United States. And when we start looking at land use in the United States, you might come back to this old phrase, location, location, location. So one of the things you'll note is that only 6.1% of the land in the United States is thought of as urban or residential housing, which means location really does matter. We have an abundance of land in the United States, but a vast majority of it is pasture land, timberland, and other uses, and not commercial real estate or not residential real estate. So I think it's really interesting to start thinking about that and how do we maintain some of those lands as they are, but also accommodate growth as is needed in the United States today.
While approximately 94% of land in the U.S. remains undeveloped or is not a part of an urban area, the land still possesses significant value. Whether it's used for commercial agriculture, forestry, rural highways, or is permanently protected by the U.S. government, this land plays a critical role in our economy, natural ecosystem, and everyday lives. Air quality, water quality, food systems, biodiversity, and energy needs depend on natural lands. How we go about managing land development has far-reaching implications. Once a parcel of land has been developed, it can't return to its natural state. Every community has to figure out the balance among different uses of land. Protecting and preserving natural ecosystems and ensuring that land is available for the public good matters. We know that outdoor and green spaces are important for people, including people living in urban environments. We know that proximity to open space increases real estate values. In the United States, we have a national park system that helps to protect lands. Communities also have parks that have been donated and protected, or that have been created out of public-private partnerships. Balancing the needs of growth with the need to maintain the natural environment is one of the challenges in real estate development.
So when we look at the U.S. economy, it's usually measured what we call GDP, gross domestic product, and about 6 to 6.5% of that, or about $1.2 trillion, is real estate. So it impacts the economy significantly. And one of the important things is when it goes to recessions and growth periods, real estate does contract and is a little more volatile in the downturns as well as the upturns. So it can be one of the things that policymakers look to spur when the economy slows down. They go, how can we get the commercial real estate industry going again? Residential as well. So when we start looking at commercial real estate, oftentimes we don't refer to single family real estate as much, but we have about 128 million households in the United States today. About 64%, or 82 million of them, own their own home. It is their largest source of financial wealth out of everything. It's more than their checking accounts, it's more than their retirement accounts. So they're very concerned about the value of their house and what's going to happen. So that's critically important. So that's part of the whole live piece. How do we live in about 2/3 of us live in a house, and it's a big financial asset for us as well. In that 82 million of 128 million folks live in their owner-occupied residence, we have another 46 million that rent apartments. And that's a big part of commercial real estate. What are the needs, wants, and desires of that group? And it's a really interesting market today because in the past, most people rented as a transition from leaving the home to ultimately owning a home, leaving your parents' home to ultimately owning a home. But today it's taking a different world. First off, that transition period is lengthening. As first-time marriage rates happen later and later, that means there's likely a longer period of renting. And so we end up having people who rent intentionally, but also empty nesters recognizing that some of the new rental projects out there are really high finish, high polish, and now we have empty nesters being a fairly significant piece of the renter marketplace today. Yeah, so when we start looking at the $8 trillion or $7.7 trillion in commercial real estate, where does that go? What makes up that number? Well, first off, you've got hotels, you've got office buildings, you've got retail facilities, you've got apartments and industrial. Those are the 5 major food groups in commercial real estate, and we invest in those commercial real estate properties for income and appreciation.
Now we're going to start thinking about real estate from the point of view of someone in the commercial real estate industry. Real estate isn't just where we live, work, and play. Real estate is an investment, an asset class. Just as you can invest in your own business or in stocks and bonds, you can invest in commercial real estate. If you were going to think about investing in real estate, you might think about buying a home. This is how most people invest in real estate. But commercial real estate investors consider the whole range of possible real estate investments available. Generally, commercial real estate is divided into 5 different families or product groupings. These are offices, stores, usually called retail, multifamily, places where more than one family lives, industrial properties, which are needed to build and store things, and hotels and resorts. Within these categories, there are different types of properties based on location, number of stories, and the kind of tenants they appeal to. Mainly, the risks and opportunities have to do with how they appreciate or depreciate, as well as the types of income streams they can produce. For example, if commercial real estate properties are sitting empty, they still have to pay staff, taxes, maintenance fees, insurance, and other operating expenses. So they're creating less value, or even losing value compared to if they were producing daily revenue streams. Revenue streams are most commonly produced through tenant leases. Different types of commercial real estate have different risks and opportunities for investors. For example, apartment buildings depend on annual leases, so income is dependent on making sure that units are occupied and good tenants stay. Office buildings often have tenants with multi-year leases, so we might think they're less risky as investments. But it often takes longer to find a good tenant for an office building. And frequently, tenants have to change the space to reflect their evolving business, which requires a lot of time and money. Hotels can be the most risky investment of all, because hotels have to lease rooms for one night at a time. Their income streams can change drastically from one day to the next. Thinking about commercial real estate as an investment means thinking about it as an opportunity for income streams and appreciation. Once you get used to thinking this way, it becomes very easy because there are lots of general rules that can be applied. Investments in commercial real estate comprise a large part of the economy. And in fact, it's an understated part of the overall economy because the numbers that are reported do not include single-family rentals or much of the industrial real estate investment that is part of the balance sheet of large companies.
So when we start looking at apartments, it's only like $1.4 trillion, and industrial is only 0.3. You go, those look really small, and they are because a lot of that investable wealth is considered how do you directly invest in real estate, and it's in single-family rentals are not included in that. A lot of industrial space, when we start looking at that as well, that's owned by the company and thought of as part of that balance sheet. So the amount of real estate that you have is well beyond that 0.3 trillion, but it's simply held by the company. And about 75% of commercial real estate is actually held by companies in manufacturing facilities and so forth. So let's talk about real estate and the aggregate wealth of the United States more generally. So the aggregate wealth of the United States is about $110 trillion, of which about 30 trillion is real estate. Looking at that 30 trillion and breaking it into residential, owner-occupied, and commercial, about 22 trillion of that is owner-occupied residential, and about 8 trillion is investment properties in commercial real estate. I think what's important, those are a bunch of numbers, but I think what's really important about that is to understand that real estate in its aggregate value is equal to about the entire stock market in the United States. That's the New York Stock Exchange, American, and NASDAQ put together. So it gives you a sense of the size of commercial real estate in the United States in wealth.